Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Space Engineers Plus Me, episode 74. I'm Enigmius, and today we're on the moon of Mars, and we're doing some testing, proof of concept on a new system that we're putting into place. And I say new because it's new to me. I don't want to suggest by any stretch of the imagination that it's completely my idea, because I'm certain others have put the same sort of idea into place. But before we get directly into that, we just want to take a look and remind ourselves of the importance of this new system. You can see we're looking at the Spectre Omni and our mining support outpost that we built in the last episode, which when we built it, we were standing flat on the ice, and it seemed pretty much flat. Not perfectly, but pretty much flat when we built it, until we tried to land a ship on it up here, and we found out just how off it was. There was quite a difference in terms of angle. When we built it, we kind of saw it like this, and then when we went to land a ship on it, it wound up being something like this. So that's the case of the terrain sloping in ways that you don't necessarily realize because you're standing on a section that's flat. It's all about the relative kind of viewpoint, I guess you could say. And just standing here or floating here, as the case may be, looking at it, you can see the difference between the angle that this one's on and the angle that the ship is on. They're only like 20 meters apart, and there's quite a substantial difference between the angles just because of the terrain. And that's illustrating two things. First of all, the original Atlas was really, really well suited to working on ice lakes where things were flat and uniform all the time. But you come down to a planet or a moon, the terrain changes just all the time, and it's not just a matter of it's smooth or it's bumpy. It's smooth, and it's still changing the contours on a very, very regular basis, which means if you've got something like a track ship that you're dropping from the gantry with a drill ship sort of there, not necessarily dangling from it if you've got the thrusters on, but it's still an extra source of weight depending on how things work out with the drop. As soon as you drop it, gravity is going to exert a lateral force on it as well to try and level it. And when it does that, it's going to apply torque to the gantry and the drop tab, and something's going to break. Maybe both, maybe just the gantry, maybe just a drop tab, but still something is going to break. And that's why the Atlas wasn't really suited to mining on anything other than ice lakes, and that's why we're building a new mining ship that will hopefully be able to conquer that limitation and mine wherever the hell we want. So that's kind of the goal. In support of that, I built a test rig, and it looks ridiculous. It looks like it's broken. It's not, but it looks like it is, and we're going to take a look at it and basically what's going on here. This lower section, you can kind of ignore, really. What this was intended to do was to set up this post here so that we could put it on a really awkward angle and see if we could level this part here, which was our simulated mining head, just from this rotor down, in a way that kind of brought it close to level. Now, it's a little bit difficult with a setup like this to get things sort of like a perfect analog, a perfect duplicate of the concept, but we're looking just for a proof of concept, and we're looking for things that we can see now that might represent design challenges, so that when we build the actual, we can keep that in mind and try and overcome them before we destroy everything that we've worked so hard to build. You can see I've got some artificial mass on this, and it's currently turned off, and this was just to help it kind of move around a little bit more freely and go where it needed to go, but it also created the issue where I wanted to swing around and not stop. So that's why it's turned off. We've also had to apply a little bit of braking force to these rotors just to stop it from swinging. Eventually it would stop on its own, but a little bit of braking force allowed us to stop it a little bit faster. The issue that I have now is that there's too much weight dangling from this post, from this and then this stuff here and the two rotors, and it's stuck. These rotors here don't have enough power to make it turn anymore. Otherwise, I'd give you an example of it moving around, but I'm sure you can imagine just from looking at it. There's two rotors here. You can operate them each independently, and then it would allow you to turn this whole thing. What we've got instead is just a static example of what happened when we maneuvered it on an odd angle and just let it do its thing. It's pretty much self-leveling. and it's also still contained. It's still being held by the system that's helping it to level. So the proof of concept is absolutely confirmed, and this will be the basis for the mechanism that will be suspending the drill head. It'll be much more refined. It's not going to look like this. It's going to look much more like something that we put some effort into instead of something that we just slapped together to make it work. But the basic concept is confirmed as viable. And like I say, I'm sure I'm not the first person to use this sort of idea. Haven't seen anyone else do it, but there's a lot of people that do a lot of things and I don't see them all. So I'm not taking credit for this design, but it is working quite well. And if you wanted a better example, we can hop in the cockpit and then you can see the artificial horizon and compare it against the pinion with the artificial mass blocks on it. It's pretty close. It's pretty close. Because we've got some braking force applied, it's not perfect, but it's definitely proof of concept. We haven't done anything whatsoever to try and manually control where that pinion stopped swinging, and it pretty much came out level. So that's a victory, I say, of the most simple kind, and it's going to be the basis for what we do on the Atlas Mk.II. Speaking of which, we've also been working quite diligently on that, and we've got a bit of sculpting and a bit of results in terms of the hull design that we can take a look at just to give you guys a bit of an update. So here we are, we're back at the station building site. We haven't had a chance to work on the station, but we have been working on the Atlas Mk.II, and basically just kind of sculpting, getting the hull filled in so that at some point this will be a viable spacefaring ship. It takes a little while. It takes to try and get curves in something that's not even a sphere in a voxel universe. It takes a little bit of time, but I'm pretty happy with the way it's going. It's going to have some oddities in the design. There are going to be some things that we're probably going to change before we declare it a finished design, but for now, it's looking kind of snazzy. It's got some personality, I guess you could say. It is rather large, sort of on the same scale as the Atlas, but everything that we've got on here so far serves a purpose. We've got obviously our lonely little control seat down there. We've got a lot of glass in this. This is a lot larger than the bridge is ever actually going to be. I expect at some point we're going to be partitioning off just a smaller area around the control seat, probably starting from the pillars and just going around like this so that we don't have to use so much oxygen to keep it pressurized. We'll also have all kinds of different machines and things off to the sides, so you'll be able to see those through the windows, but the bridge itself will be basically looking through these 6 windows in sort of an area kind of like that. We've got this central area, which currently is the thruster blob that's keeping the ship from moving around when we're welding it with the construction ship. But this is going to be where we have our self-leveling sort of gyro-like setup that will allow us to keep our drill bit and the column supporting it level to the extent that it's not going to be wanting to tug away at things producing, torque-like forces on account of gravity that could cause damage, and helping to support the drill in doing its job without having it bouncing all over the place because, again, gravity is wanting to smash it into walls and things like that. So this big circular area is where all of that will be taking place. It's going to be hollow, basically. We're not going to be filling this in as part of the hull, and then we'll have the mechanism in the middle of that. And then in the back, which we've barely touched, is going to be where all of the heavy-duty machines are going to be placed. Our refineries, our arc furnaces, our assemblers, probably hydrogen tanks of some sort. We'll put the reactors up front because reactors are the thing that from time to time you actually want to interact with to give them uranium or whatever. One of the things that we did with the Atlas was we set up the reactors with auto feeders and allowed them to pull uranium out of any storage container that it could find. Not necessarily a bad thing, but also not necessarily a great thing either, because it meant that if we wanted uranium from something else, we had to go to the reactors themselves and pull it out. So one way or the other, you're interacting with the reactors. So I'm thinking maybe, possibly, we'll just put them up front where they're easy to get to. So it's been a number of hours in the making. but it's coming together fairly well. So by the next episode, I hope to have a little bit more sculpting done. We'll see about getting the thruster blob relocated to some potentially more permanent locations for the thrusters. And we'll have, hopefully, the framework for the auto gyro in here. And we can start thinking about exactly how we're going to do the suspending of the bore heads and all those other things. So we've been busy. We've got a lot done. We've got a lot tested. Things are moving forward at... I'm pretty happy with the pace that things are moving forward at. I would just have to keep them moving without too much slowdown. Otherwise, it could be another 37 episodes before you see the end of it. So if you want to be notified about the next video when we show off the next little bit of progress, you can always subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on social media. Links for that are in the information box below the video. Feel free to leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.